Okay, so to continue with the theme of today, which is to talk about ambushes, I want to talk about one of the deadliest ambushes in American history, and which is the attack that took place in Wardak, in the Tangi Valley, which where they shot down a Chinook that had I think it was like 20. I can't think of the number right now. This video will probably tell you. It was like 30 KIA. It's mainly Navy SEALs. I'm trying to think. All kinds of service members. I'm sorry, it's pretty late at night. It's almost midnight, and I've been making videos all night. Okay, so I want to react to this infographics video I have not seen. It's gonna give you a history, I guess, of the attack. But I want to tell you my point of view from what happened when I was there, because I was an analyst at the time, and I was at Fob Shank where they took off from. I was with 10th Mountain at the time, and 10th Mountain was the battle space owner of Wardak and Logar and Bamiyan province, and I provided overwatch of the rescue operation and helped coordinate the rescue operation, even though the rescue operation wasn't a rescue operation because everyone was dead. It was more like a recovery. And so I want to give you details of what happened that day. So a little bit more about myself. I'm an intelligence. My background is as an imagery analyst. But one thing about I tell people is you might study, or your MOS might be one thing, but when it's the needs of the Army. When you get to your duty station, just because you're we were trying to be in a certain field, doesn't mean that that's what you're gonna do. For example, I remember there was a guy who was an infantryman, and they put him in the talk as I don't know, just to type up stuff, and he was so pissed because he was like, man, I joined the infantry so I wouldn't have to be behind a desk, and they gave him a desk job. So I was an imagery analyst, but they took me away from the imagery part of where I was supposed to be working at, and they put me in ISR, Intelligence, Surveillance, Reconnaissance, which is basically it's just like Overwatch, drones, all kinds of drones, you name it. You know, from predators to reapers to, you know, if it flies, and if the military had it, I coordinated with them and the troops on the ground. You know, it's like basically I was like a middleman, you know, and just making sure that everything was going perfect. And I worked in a place called the Talk or JOC. There's different names for it. Joint Operation Center, I think is what it's called. Basically, it's a big open room, almost like imagine NASA. They're gonna launch a rocket, and everybody's facing the same directions, and there's a bunch of screens everywhere, and you have computers everywhere, and in this case we have soldiers, and everyone has a designated job. I'm providing chat to the pilots of the drones and talking to the ground troops and telling the battle captain what's going on. There's other people who are doing radar. There's just every kind of job. We're all in one open room, and that way we could help each other out. Okay, so every day before you go to work, we have a briefing, and because we have a day shift and night shift. We work 12-hour shifts. So when I would, before the ends, there's like a briefing. Everybody gives a brief, so that everybody, the whole room shuts down, and we're like, all right, we're gonna do a shift change brief. All right, S1 or S2 or S3, everybody gets up and says, all right, this is what I did last night. You know, this, and this, and then it goes to the next person, and blah blah blah. You know, it's pretty boring. You know, it's pretty routine. Well, I showed up kind of late. I remember because most of the time I'll never show up to the briefing because it's kind of pointless, because they're gonna do a briefing and then I'm gonna go to my station and I'm gonna get another like just a quick briefing. It's usually a quick changeover because nothing happens at nighttime. I work daytime. At nighttime, most of the time it's quiet. Stuff doesn't happen at nighttime. All right, so I show up a little bit late, and I try to sneak in, and I was like, "What the hell? Like the brief is still going on. There's still." And when I walked into the room, it was packed with a lot of brass. I mean, you see, I never really seen it that crowded. I was like, "Man, what is going on?" So I get to my station, and the guy working there says, "Whew, you're gonna have a wild day." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He points to the screen and says, "We had a fallen angel. A fallen angel is like code for an aircraft. An aircraft crashed." And he points to the screen and says 38 KIA. And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah." And then he says, in the Tangi. The Tangi is this valley, and it was our most dangerous area that we operated in. It was so dangerous that we had a central observation post, a cop Tangi. We had to shut it down. We had to pull troops out of there in April, a few months before this happened, just because the number of attacks that would happen there, they would get attacked like pretty much like daily, and then the firefights lasted for days. So they constantly were getting attacked, and we were like, this cop is gonna get overrun. It's in a bad location. It's gonna get overrun. I mean, the army has already had a couple places that were overrun, and we kind of I guess someone on top says, "You know what? It's we don't really have to have it there. It's not strategic or in our area. Like it's we could do without it." You know, and like I said, it was in a hotbed, so they decided to pull out. So we had pulled out in April, if my memory serves me correct. It's been a long time. It's been over 14 years, I think, 13, and so we had pulled out, and this is a long story. So we had pulled out, and just kind of gave up on that area. The closest cop we had near there was Cop Baraki Barak, and we just never drove through that. There was a road that connected, that went through the Tangi, and we just stopped going through there. We just because, again, you never go with anything smaller than like a battalion force, because you're gonna get attacked so bad. So we just like I said, we pulled out of that area and focused on other areas. All right, so this happened. At the same time, while my unit, 10th Mountain, is conducting operations, there's other units doing operations in the same battle space. So we had a JSOC, connecting night raids in Logar and Wardak. They have their mission, we have our mission, and we're all on the same base. We're all at Fob Shank, which is in Logar, and so this is what happened. That they were doing their mission, and again, since we're the battle space owners, after it got shot down, we were the unit kind of like responsible for doing the recovery. And I'm gonna go into detail of all that in a few minutes. So I'm gonna play this just to catch my thoughts, and I'll give you more details on that.
Flying low over the Afghan treetops, an elite unit of special operators from 3 different American military branches and the Afghan army huddle together tightly inside their helicopter. The mood is tense. The night is dark. Each man prepares for the dangerous mission in his own way. Some tell lighthearted jokes or make small talk. Others focus intently on what's to come, constantly rehearsing his own role in the matter, while the rest simply sit in silence, contemplating what tomorrow will hold as the days tick down until they rotate home. They've been waiting for hours at this point, until the call finally comes over the radio to go into action. American forces on the ground have radioed for assistance, and it's their job to help accomplish the mission. As they cut their way through the humid Afghan night, they can see their landing zone barely visible over the treetops. The massive helicopter they're in starts to slow and to make its descent. "One mic out," roars the pilot over the radio. The men start to stand and brace themselves for the mad dash they're going to have to make once the helicopter touches the ground. They're checking magazines and weapon conditions while tightening the helmet straps they loosened for the ride over. Then, disaster strikes. With no sound, no warning, the aircraft bursts into flames. There's a tremendous explosion, and within 5 seconds, 31 American and 7 Afghan lives are lost. But what exactly happened to Extortion 17 to cause it to go down in a ball of fire and cause one of the largest single-day losses of life in 21st century American military history? Qari Tahir, Taliban commander and linchpin of the Taliban resistance, needed to go down, either arrest or termination. The man was too dangerous to be left alive. To get its man, the U.S. military turned to a mix of Navy SEALs, Air Force pararescue men, explosive ordnance disposal, U.S. Army Rangers, and Afghan commandos. Tahir was in charge of all Taliban forces in the Tangi Valley of the Wardak province. This was a strategic area since it was only 60 miles from the Afghan capital of Kabul, where Taliban fighters had been launching deadly attacks in the heart of the country with near impunity for years. American and coalition forces had tried repeatedly to control this region, but it remained effectively a Taliban stronghold. After multiple operations to subdue the region with little success, American commanders were ecstatic when they received reliable intelligence that Tahir was going to be located at a compound with a lighter than usual bodyguard. This presented the perfect opportunity to not only cut the head off the snake of the local Taliban, but it would enable the coalition to gain valuable insight into how the Taliban were so successfully able to elude their best efforts to contain them. American officers knew from the beginning the mission was going to be high risk. The compound where the supposed meeting was taking place with Tahir was in a terrorist hotbed with little to no support from locals. Making matters worse, the natural geography of the valley presented only one way in and one way out, an easy kill zone for enemy defenders. Compounding these difficulties was that there was almost zero illumination that night, meaning the pilots and crew would have extreme difficulty seeing any incoming fire and have less time to react than usual. Lastly, if that were not enough, Taliban fighters had started to become much more active at night in response to the increased use of night raids by special forces in the area. In short, American forces were going up against a well-entrenched, battle-hardened, and experienced enemy who had geography and the cover of darkness on his side. Definitely not the most ideal of circumstances. American commanders wanted to keep the element of surprise, but were prepared to engage whatever enemy forces they might find. The plan of attack was to insert a platoon of Army Rangers by the compound who would then sweep in to capture Tahir while he was in the building. The Navy SEALs and their accompanying support personnel would be on standby at the forward operating base they were based out of. This force was intended to be the reserve force in case the Rangers did not succeed or needed help before the target could get away. 2 Apache attack helicopters, an AC-130 gunship, and multiple intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft were tasked with providing support to the mission. At approximately 22:58 local time, the Ranger platoon was inserted into the objective. At about the same time, friendly aircraft noticed a group of 8 Taliban fighters walking in a single file line north of the compound. One of the Apache gunships opened fire and killed 6 of them, while the other 2 were sent fleeing into the night for their lives. Over the next several hours, the Rangers battled to control the compound. By about 2:45 in the morning, the compound was secure with no sight of the Taliban leader. It was thought that the leader had fled before the Americans could arrive, and that his most trusted fighters made a last-ditch effort to delay his pursuers long enough to give him time to escape. The theory was backed up by the fact that the 2 fighters who escaped the initial attack by the Apache gunship were joined throughout the firefight by more and more Taliban, making their group between 9 and 10 members by 2:15 in the morning. American commanders believed that Tahir was among these fighters and that the action needed to be taken immediately to prevent his escape. It was then decided to send in the SEALs. During the firefight with the Taliban at the compound, American planners assumed that the Taliban commander would be alerted to their presence and make his escape. That's why, at 0100, local preparations were already underway to insert the Immediate Reaction Force, or IRF, that comprised the SEALs and their supporting members. The landing zone that was picked out was thoroughly studied before and was previously approved for earlier missions, but never utilized. The pilots that flew the aircraft were also extremely experienced, with thousands of hours of flight time, including hundreds of hours of combat experience. The helo was also blacked out, meaning absolutely no light emissions were allowed from the aircraft, which could give an easy target for any Taliban gunners below. The one precaution that was the most sound was also the most controversial. The 2 CH-47D Chinook helicopters used to insert the Ranger platoon earlier were also utilized for the SEAL insertion, but instead of splitting the men between the 2 aircraft, they were combined onto one. That would prove a fatal mistake. Why it was decided to put the entire IRF team in one helo was actually a matter of sound operating principles utilized throughout the war, and especially in this area. Multiple helicopters would present multiple targets to the Taliban, especially in the most vulnerable landing and takeoff phases, when the helos would be unable to utilize their missile defense measures or maneuver to safety. Safety concerns may sound extreme, but this threat was not some figment of the imagination. Over the past several months, there have been at least 4 attempted downings of helicopters by Taliban fighters using rocket-propelled grenades and other small arms. Though wildly inaccurate and basic, these weapons were still a force to be reckoned with in the hands of the right user and with a bit of luck. As fate would have it, luck would be on the Taliban side that night. As Extortion 17 made its way over the treetops and slowed its speed to about 50 knots or almost 60 miles per hour, while also dropping to between 100 and 150 feet, the helo made its approach from the northwest, was trying to touch down near some fields as it had to pass over several pallats or mud buildings on the way down. It was here that the Taliban fired between 2 or 3 rocket-propelled grenades at the aircraft. The first one missed, but at least one other hit its mark. The warhead exploded near the end of the aft rotor blade, taking off over 10 feet of blade. This in turn caused a simultaneous catastrophic failure of the aircraft's integrity, which quickly brought it down in a matter of seconds. In the mangled wreckage of the once mighty Chinook, there were no survivors. Immediately after the downing, the circling Chinook helicopter radioed that they could see the other aircraft burning and needed help. The Rangers quickly broke from the compound and rushed over to the wreckage. Once on the scene, they immediately set up a perimeter to prevent the Taliban from swooping in to finish off their comrades, and they started searching for survivors. Unfortunately, by the end of the morning, the search for survivors was complete, and all 38 on board were confirmed killed. An Army ground convoy was dispatched to transport the remains, and additional Special Forces units were called in to help sort out the wreckage. Once all the remains were loaded onto the convoy, recovery efforts began in earnest. What the Army wanted to know from the wreckage was why one of their most combat-tested aircraft suddenly and without warning plummeted from the sky. Had it been a freak accident? Was it a mechanical failure of the aircraft? Had the Taliban acquired some new advanced weapon systems capable of downing aircraft with ease? The answers to these questions and many more were sought not only by the Army, but by the families of the deceased, Central Command leadership, and the U.S. Congress. Initial reports from the Taliban stated that the weapon that brought down the helicopter was a standard RPG commonly utilized throughout the country, while some locals speculated that the Taliban had in fact acquired a new weapon from Pakistan. These reports were unsubstantiated and not backed up by the investigation conducted by the Army. The Army wanted to know how such a weapon, with a max effective range of a little over several hundred yards, could take down an aircraft with only one shot. To prove this conclusively, the Army fired a similar weapon system at the exact same blades and was able to replicate the damage perfectly, thereby concluding that without a doubt, an RPG could in fact cause such catastrophic damage. But what of the Taliban fighter who fired that 1 in a million shot? Apparently, after the battle, American forces intercepted radio communications from him bragging about what he had done. However, the celebration was short-lived. Several days later, he and the Taliban leader, who was the focus of the failed raid, were cornered and killed in an airstrike. A follow-on team confirmed their deaths after the fact. Extortion 17 was brought down by a lucky 1 in a million shot, and sadly, over 3 dozen of the US and Afghan's military's finest were all killed in the span of seconds. While many doubt the official investigation and insist something else must have happened, the sad truth is that that's just the way war goes sometimes, even if that fact brings no comfort to the families of the deceased. Now, for more of the
Okay. So yeah, so after they got shot down, you would think that was like the worst of it, but no, it the video here doesn't really give into detail that it wasn't, the recovery wasn't as easy as you would think. Okay, so picture this. You're going into enemy territory, and first of all, you can't fly in any more aircraft because if you already lost one helicopter, you can't afford to lose another one. So now the recovery is going to be there's going to be no more helicopters. It's all about ground forces, and then this hits the news. So by the morning, everyone knows that what happened, and so it calls like all fighters in the area to move to that location because they know that there's going to be the Americans are going to go in there and recover their stuff. So on the way, so we had a convoy come from 2 directions, from one from Cop Wardak, and the other one from Shank, and that went through Barak. And I think any part of the convoy was from Cop Barak. And basically they were trying to meet up in the middle, from both directions. And so when you have a large convoy like that, in the front of the convoy you have like EOD or route clearance, RCP route clearance patrol, and what they're doing is checking for IDs and stuff. So check this out. That day we had over 100 IEDs en route to the location. So it was a slow. It was a slow process to just even get into the site. Like they flooded the there's only one road. They flooded that road with IEDs. Over like I said, over 100. So so just to get to the site. On top of that, there was so many ticks, troops in contact, ambush attack after back to back all day, as we're trying to clear the road and get to the site. I think it took over 36 hours. I almost want to say it took like over, or maybe even longer, like to get everything back to Fob Shank. Get all the bodies back, the Chinook. I think some of it went to Wardak, but it took a long time. It wasn't just a simple thing. It took, like I said, it was one of the longest days of the war. And you know what was kind of shocking was that something that people don't know, especially even veterans, is that they play taps. If you might have heard taps, it's that trumpet song that they play at funerals. And in the stateside, they play taps pretty much like at nighttime, almost at most military installations, But in the war zone, they only play it when we have it's something called a hero flight. A hero flight is when you fly out someone who got killed in action. We will fly them out of Fob Shank to go to what do they call Bath, Bagram, whatever, and then they will fly to the States. So the only time they played taps was during hero flights, and for the next 3 days, it felt or 2.5 days, taps was playing all the time, just randomly, and that's how you knew there was a hero flight. And it just made it kind of the mood on the base was just like, I don't know, like, because constantly taps, just maybe some taps, and it was just constant, because again there was just so many KIAs. It was insane. Yeah, and this says that we got the guy. I don't remember getting the dude. Like maybe they're just saying that to save face, because we even talked about it. We're like, we don't truly know who did it, and there were so many people claiming to say that they did it. Yeah, because everybody wanted to be the guy to say that they're the ones that shot the Chinook. We have reports like of everyone claiming to be it. So truly to say that the guy who shot it down, I couldn't say for a fact that he got. Maybe they're just saying it just for to have a good story or a good ending to the story. And also I heard that that the SEALs, they weren't really needed. Everything had already been under control when they came. The Rangers didn't really need QRF, so there's that. So again, this infographics war, I get it. You want to make him look more heroic, so the loss wasn't as great. Nobody wants to say that it could have been avoided. That they weren't really needed. They could have just stayed on base. It was a bad call. But that's what I've heard. I don't know for a fact. This is just what I've heard. But yeah, that was one of the longest few days in during my deployment, and it was just crazy. Like I said, the mood. Just everything, and it was near the end of my deployment too. So we were already worn out. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. Like I said, it was a rough few days just to get to the site. Like I wish I had the SIGAT reports to show you like how many times we had troops in contact from both directions, and then to keep the area secure as they moved out of there. Again, because the Tangi was just so dangerous that again we had to move out of there in April. Because again we thought that they would get what do you call? We would get overtaken, because just the valley, it's the terrain, it's I don't know, it was difficult. All right, Well, that's my story, my war story. I'm gonna share a couple more war stories later on.